You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. A podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I got questions and hopefully some answers today. And so in today's episode, this is Asking for a Friend Part 2. This is the second episode in the series where I answer your questions, friends' questions, students' questions, whoever's questions, with the help of another person. And today I have Jordan McGee.
Hello.
There she is. Jordan, who are you? What's going on?
So I am going to be a senior at Central Michigan University.
Fire up, Chips.
Yeah, I have had 2 classes with Dr. Alysa Lucas.
That's me.
Yeah. And I'd say I have a pretty good perspective as a 21-year-old when it comes to friendship, especially in college. So,
Yeah, so we're going to answer some of your questions, and Jordan's here to offer her advice and experience and maybe even provide some warnings, who knows? And I'm here to do the same. So this is a conversation, quote unquote, asking for a friend. So here's the first question. Okay. Is it appropriate to call someone your best friend? Do you have a best friend?
I do have a best friend. I've had many best friends. I've never just had one best friend. I had best friends when I was 5. I had best friends when I was 10,
And so on and so forth.
I think it really depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now, I feel like I have found my best friend for life.
Oh, it's your person.
So my person, her name is Kayla.
Hey, Kayla.
She's going to watch this later.
Watch.
Listen to this later.
If only we were recording this visually.
So, and it's interesting because I've only known her for about 2 years. But I met her, she was actually my GA for a class that I was taking my sophomore year. And she was originally just my instructor, so it was kind of interesting. We started doing improv together.
Oh, fun.
And when you are with people all the time and you're just vulnerable like that, you just kind of tend to become close to people.
Yeah.
We started to become close very fast. We started to, I guess, share a lot about each other.
Yeah.
And I can say that she's been there for me through a lot of rough times the past 2 years, especially just right now in college. A lot of things have just been going up and down.
Yeah.
And she has stuck with me through a lot of that. And I've had a lot of people that I've considered best friends that decided that that was too much for them, or that they just had other people that they'd rather spend their time with. And I refrained from calling people best friends for a while because of that, because I used to have a best friend in high school that I was very, very close with for like 3-4 years. Yeah. And when we went off to college, it just... It disappeared? It pretty much almost... It started to kind of phase out a little bit, and it really affected me in a weird way because I thought that we were close. I thought we were very, very close. But as soon as I got to college and I started to get close with people during like my 3rd year, I realized that we weren't as close as I thought we were.
Yeah. So in some ways, it seems like, okay, when you're 5 and you have a best friend, that's all relative to when you're 5 years old, right? Yeah. And when you're in high school, the best friend might be relative to you at that time. And now Kayla as a best friend might be relative to this time. And, you said she's your person. You might be more inclined to know that better than, say, when you were 5 years old. And so it seems like for best friendships, labeling it that is fine, but it's also might be the case that won't be forever, right? That we grow in and out of phases. There's lots of transitions in life. And I think that is something that happens a lot to people when they go off to college. And we have a new academic year starting in like a month, unfortunately. I want more summer, but we got a new year. And so there are going to be a lot of high school students who are going off to college, or students who are transferring to new schools. And those friendships might change. And that's completely natural.
Right.
So I think some of it is, if you're going to label it that way, you might have to be ready for that label to change.
Right.
And in that sense, it can feel like a breakup in some ways. What do you think?
Well, one thing I would say is that I graduated high school in 2016, so that wasn't that far long ago.
A couple years ago.
Years ago. I had a very distinct group of friends the end of my high school years. I was very, very close with them. And I knew that I was going to go off to college not with them. I decided when I was going to go off to college, I wanted a fresh start. I had been in the same town for 18 years. Yeah. I wanted a fresh start. Yeah. I knew that. I was terrified. I was like,
yeah, I bet.
I remember we were in our friend's backyard with doing like a bonfire. And I knew it was like actually the night before I was about to go move off.
Yeah.
And I was so terrified. I cried my eyes out for hours because I realized that everything was going to be different from then on. And I was right. I remember the first couple months I was here, I would call them a lot. I would try to talk to them a lot, keep things kind of going. But as the months went on, especially after my first year of college, we were almost not even friends anymore. And that's not everybody's case.
Yeah.
But I know specifically for me, I never wanted to go to college with my friends just because they were going to that college. Gotcha. I know a lot of people in my high school that are still friends with each other. They all went to school together. They went to college together. They're still really close. I don't think that's the right... There is... Okay. Where do I begin?
She's like, I'm about to break it down.
There's a whole other life out there.
There's a whole new world.
There's so many people in this world. There are so many people that you can connect to, that you can relate to, that aren't people you went to high school with.
Yeah. And I think some people do that. And you know, I don't know if the word is right or wrong, because I think it can really work for some people, and that might be what they're comfortable with. But I think it is like a level of familiarity, right? That you can continue on with the friends that you've had, and you know that they're going to be there, that you trust them, and then you can have this new experience together, which helps them continue their friendship. But yeah, they might be missing out on so many other relationships because they're so focused there. And then in your case, when you said you went and you had a fresh start and you were talking to each other, a lot of times friendships can sort of diminish in quality or time spent together because you're just not in the same location, right? And so, like, I hate the phone. But the good news is so does Kate, who I would call, and that's the thing, the question's about, would you call someone a best friend? I call Kate a best friend, but maybe she doesn't want me to. I don't know, Kate, send me a note.
Well, I thought that it was just the distance. Yeah. But as soon as I came back to my hometown for the summer, things were different. I could just feel things were different. And now, with my best friend now, we can not talk for a couple months, weeks, just not talk. But as soon as we're back together, it's like, you know, it's like nothing ever left. You know?
Like there was no time in between. And
there was no time in between.
And maybe that's, instead of labeling someone as a best friend, it's like, because, I mean, there are distinctions between people. Like, the person that I see if I took, like, a yoga class every week, and I would be like, oh, it's my yoga friend. Or this is someone that, my oldest friend. This is, like, we do, I think, inherently label people, or that there is a distinction. And I think it's Mindy Kaling who has the tiers of friends, and that you might have multiple people on each tier, but there is some distinction between them. And that maybe it's not so much that best is the right word. It's kind of what you said at the beginning when you said that Kayla was your person.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for friends that no matter distance or experience, that when we get back together, it's as if there was no time or experience in between. Like, it's that we can jump back right to when it is. And that, you know, I think there is this focus on calling people best friends because I think we are inherently looking to feel included. I think we're looking to be accepted, that we want to be part of whatever crew or posse or a group of people, you know, who are our people. And so, but I think that in some degrees that having that label, there might be some level of possession that can be associated with it, right? Like, they're mine. Like, it's like Gollum from
definitely
Lord of the
some
Rings.
jealousy going on.
It's mine.
And I feel like that's more of a...
Are you going to say high school?
Yes.
Yeah, so
high school
I was going to say
mentality.
maturity. And I think that is unfair slightly, that high school folks and younger people get a bad rap when these things can happen in adult relationships. But true. I think it's something that might be more common at that age because
you're still growing and maturing, and you're still experiencing. I can tell you right now.
Figuring out who you are, you know?
I can tell you right now that I really do feel like I would feel emotions a lot more intensely when I was in high school or younger or my teenage years, because now I don't feel as like, say a friend, you know, didn't want to hang out with me one day and was just like, hey, I just don't want to, I'm just tired. I wouldn't be like, oh, that's because they hate me. Everyone hates me. It's all this, you know.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you know, it's okay. Like,
it's like they need a mental health day. They need a day off. They need to hug their cat. They need to watch The Bachelorette. I don't know, whatever.
Because I know in high school, I remember, you know, having friends that if one person, they suddenly like didn't want to hang out one day, or they're hanging out every day and now they don't want to. It's like, oh, it's the end of the world.
Or you start to wonder, well, if they're not hanging out with me, who are they hanging out with? And it's like, because it's like, the label best would assume there is no other best friends. Yeah. And so, you know, unless, of course, you know, they have the necklaces still, you know, when I was a kid, and I know I'm like a bit older than you. So we had the necklaces where you break it in half, best and friends.
I had those.
Yeah. Well, now if you go online, they have so many versions of it. They have like avocados, they have eggs and bacon, they have peanut butter and jelly. There's one where I think it's like 8 slices to a pizza. It takes into account that there might be a larger group of friends. And so maybe that's sort of the development we needed in friendships, was instead of saying there's 2, or then there was like best friends forever, so you could have 3, but then that was like it, and now it's you can have 8, you can have 10. It's still like sort of like a possession, or you're included and you're excluded, and that sort of things can happen.
What I think is cool is that everyone is an individual, and you know, we all might have more than one best friend. I might just have one best friend. Kayla might have 3 or 4 best friends. That's cool because she's an individual. She's close with those people. Yeah. You know, we're all different people. I'm close with her for certain reasons. Yeah. She's close with other people for certain reasons. But I think it all comes into perspective, too. Especially when you're... I hate, you know, bringing down the youngins, because I'm not even that old. But...
Those young folks.
The youngins.
The ripe 15 years of age.
The Gen Z. Because I'm technically a Gen Z. Technically. Yeah.
Oh, so I don't even have to crap on you millennials? Just kidding.
Yeah, right.
It's all about the Gen Z now.
And, you know, it's very much just and it's not even, and again, it's not even necessarily your age. It's just like generally, if they don't have a lot of other outside experiences other than they're very, you know, enclosed. And that's not their fault. That's part of life. That's growing. You know?
And for some people, like I said before, that might just be, and they're fine with that. And that's, you know, it's really what works for the individual person. But I think that with labeling, the one thing to be careful of is that everyone understands the label. Because if someone's like, this is my best friend, and this person's like, these 3 people are my best friend, and they're not on the same page, then that person who didn't have the 2 other best friends might experience jealousy. They're going to have feelings.
And you guess what? It's all about communication.
It is? Oh,
it's all about communication.
She just dropped the mic on me, and I teach her in classes. It's because you had me for classes, right? As I do a Beyonce hair flip. Just kidding. But no, exactly. It's like one of those things like, you know, I feel like, how do people know that they're best friends? Is it like when you find out you're a couple? Like, so are we boyfriend, girlfriend? Are we partners? What's going on? Like, how do we know that until maybe we introduce our friend to someone else, or there is a conversation, or it comes up, or we should get these necklaces or something. And then it's like, I feel really strongly about our friendship, but I also feel really strongly about, you know, my friend from, you know, graduate school, or my friend from yoga, or whatever the case is. And so I also call these people my best friends. And so it might just help with maybe feelings of jealousy, but also feelings of maybe being left out. And that kind of leads into the next question, right? So what should you do when you do feel excluded from a group of friends? Have you ever had that experience where people that you're friends with get together and somehow you're like, did y'all forget to text me? Is my phone broken?
So I had a rough couple of years in high school just with my mental health. And I didn't realize that I was putting a lot on my friends at the time. And I expected them to always constantly be there for me I didn't realize, that they're their own people too.
Yeah.
I just was very much dealing with so much and didn't know how to express that.
Mm-hmm.
They also didn't know how to express to me that they felt overwhelmed.
Yeah, like how do I friend someone who might be experiencing some mental health concerns, and how do I ask my friends for help when I'm having these mental health concerns, for example? Yeah.
So I had a couple of my friends try to kind of back away from me for a little bit, and I had some friends try to back away from me for a little bit, and try to not text me as much, not call me as much, do their own thing. I noticed that, and they didn't talk to me about that. They didn't tell me, hey, Jordan, like, I want to be there for you, but we need a break.
Yeah.
I felt it as they hate me. It's my fault. Everything's my fault. I would just spiral. And I think in that specific situation, I didn't realize that until after I had, gotten some help.
Yeah.
I actually didn't realize that until like my second year of college. I was like, they weren't bad people. They weren't trying to leave me out. They were just also they were dealing with their own demons.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what to do. And the situation itself just wasn't dealt with right anyway. But again, we were kids. We didn't know
You're still
how to deal
learning.
with that. Yeah, we're still learning. And I don't blame them at all. Like, we're still, those friends of mine, we're still close. Not as close as we used to be.
Yeah.
Because they're out of state. They're, doing their own thing. But I still consider them good friends of mine.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we've talked about on the podcast before, is just that sometimes friendships change or some might end. And Bill Rollins, who was on my 1-year anniversary episode, talks about commemorative friends and that we think of them fondly, right? Like, so even if they might not be considered best friends, or, that you don't spend as much time with them, there are still a lot of people that have contributed to our life in some way and who we are, and we can think of them fondly, but things have simply changed. And I think, though, that you're right, that as people navigate who they are and the world as it is through high school and college and beyond, that there is probably more feelings of feeling left out because you're trying to find your footing in the world, in high school, the high school world, and the college world. And then when you graduate, then it's like the work world. And then, I have to move. Now I'm in a completely different city. And so I think feeling left out can just simply going on Facebook and seeing all the things that your friends are doing, and they might not even feel like, they might not have excluded you. You might simply be 1,000 miles away and are feeling left out because you don't have someone there with you. And so I think there's like two scenarios here. I think there are the folks that might go online and they have FOMO, the fear of missing out, and maybe it's not even a fear. They're like, I am missing out because my friends are getting together and I'm away at college, or I just moved to this new job. And so I think that some good advice for folks there might be looking for new connections in that area. And on a college campus, for example, there's so many different ways. As you mentioned earlier, you're part of improv, and Jordan and her improv friends just came into my class to show students about communication and listening and things like that. And there's 3 improv groups on campus. So even if you're in improv and you don't feel like the first group's your group, there might be a different group. And there's so many different ways, because people are like, wait, there's improv on college campuses? Yeah, there is. There's so many things.
So I'd like to bring up a little bit of a topic. There is a little Twitter account that is associated with our university. It is called CMU Confessions.
I love this page.
Yeah. I've noticed a lot of tweets that are like, hey, I am a 3rd year, I'm a 4th year, I'm a 1st year, I'm having trouble finding friends. I can't find friends. I've been here for 3 years and I can't find friends. I think a lot of that has to do with still kind of reverting back to your high school years, or not being too afraid to branch out and reach out. And because there's so many people on this campus,
Yeah.
And
any college campus.
Right, any college campus.
And in most towns, there's going to be lots of different groups of people too.
So
but
I would say that speaking of like, I guess, feeling left out, when I came to Central, I was alone.
Yeah.
I did a leadership safari for mine.
which I talked about with Ellen last year on Success Squad episode, where we talked about like incoming students coming, and that's a great way to get connected to campus and to new people.
And I would definitely recommend doing it.
Yeah, fire up.
I remember my group, they all became friends with each other, and then I was just kind of there, and I was like, so this is how college is gonna go.
Cool.
Okay. Obviously not.
Yeah.
But I remember my first couple weeks of school, I just joined like everything. I went to every meeting. I was like introducing myself. I was so obnoxious. I was like,
"Hi, I'm Jordan."
I literally also went to on the first day of like my classes, before class started, I found my professor's offices, and I went up and like introduced myself, and they're like,
Nerd.
"Who are you?" Because I was in like I was like, "Hi, I'm Jordan. How you doing? I'm gonna be in your class." And then they're like, "Okay." And I was like, "Oh God, I just ruined everything."
Great.
I was very much like, I wanted people to know me. I wanted to be connected with people because I was missing my friends from high school so much that I wanted to pour myself into other things. And I can definitely say that none of the friends that I made my freshman year are even my friends anymore. Yeah. But I can say that they definitely shaped who I am right now. Every single person that I've come across that I've been friends with, even if we're not friends anymore, if we're on good terms, bad terms, they have shaped who I am. They have shaped how I make relationships with other people. So I don't believe that any connection, any friendship that I've ever had, good or bad, is a mistake.
Yeah.
Even if they were really rough or anything like that, because I would never change anything about my experience in college and all the people that I've met, because I wouldn't be who I am today with the friends that I have, specifically my improv friends. Yeah. I consider them, kind of going back to that last question, I don't even consider them my best friends. I consider them family. Yeah. They're my family. We have gone through so much together. We're there for each other. Anytime anyone needs anything, it could be like 2 a.m, 3 a.m, you can call somebody up and they're like, they'll be there for you.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think some people call it, and I believe there's some work on it, where people call it like finding your tribe. But I think it is finding like that group or finding who you are people with. And, I have a couple thoughts about this. Number one, if any of my future students want to come say hi before classes start, you're welcome to.
I'm sorry, I'm a nerd.
Yeah. And I won't call you that. Maybe. We'll see. Second, I think from my experience of following CMU Confessions is that I think a lot of people post things about making friends because they are feeling excluded or they are feeling lonely. It may not, what they know, how they know to make friends is not working for them. And so that might be something like, oh, you're in a room and then you make friends because it's been the same people you went to school with your entire life. And in college, there's so many different co-cultures and other groups that it's kind of like you might have to find, it might take a little bit to find your group. And it reminds me, when you said you signed up for everything, it reminds me of a Brady Bunch episode. And if anyone listens to any of my podcasts, I love the Brady Bunch. And so there's an episode where Marcia doesn't want to go to school because she's going to high school. And she doesn't think she's going to be as accepted or be able to find friends. She's just really nervous about starting high school. And so, of course, she starts and the parents ask Greg to, like, introduce her to people. But then she tries to act like, I'm really mature. And so she, like, changes the tone of her voice and just says and uses words that no one uses, and everyone's sort of weirded out. And then she goes home and she's upset. And so her mom's like, why don't you join some groups on campus or groups in school? And so she goes up to the board and she starts to sign up for something, and she signs up for every single group. She does like scuba diving. She does, there's like some social group, like it almost looks like a sorority or it's the boosters or whatever. So it's some sort of social group, and she took an art class and she did all these things. And first off, she was overworked by being part of every single group. Like, you just can't do that. But also is like the social group wasn't her kind of people, right? And then she decided to stay with one class that she did like, and there was like a karate class, so it was like she tried things out until she found what worked for her. And I think that is good advice from the show and still works here today. And the thing about it is, on any campus, there is a list of all the organizations that exist. And you might have to do some more social media work to find current information because the presidents and that sort of thing might change every year. And so it might be more consistent, like on a Twitter or Facebook, that sort of thing. But I think that you might find a group that you're interested in. And I think that goes for people who are not in college as well, right? Like what exists in the city. If you're in a bigger city, there's probably more options. And, in a smaller town, there might be less options, but there still might be something in like a radius in which you're willing to drive, right? If that's an hour, a half hour, 10 minutes, right? And so I think that's one of the things that we can do is that if we feel excluded, one, if we're at a distance from our friends, it might just be creating some new connections. And if you feel like you don't have a lot of friends and you're feeling excluded, then it might be seeing what else you can do. But I think it's a whole different issue if you are friends with people and they're excluding you. And one of the things could be, like you said, well, if someone just said, I just can't do it tonight. If it happens every now or then, it's not a big deal. But if it's every single time and they're canceling plans or they're going out and not inviting you, it might be a question of why. And if you don't want to know that answer, or it turns out to be something that can be a fight or a conflict that people are not willing to have that conversation, it might come down to maybe there's some other people to look for. Maybe you haven't found your group yet,
So I have dealt with both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I have, the first time I did start an argument, and I was just like, just tell me honestly. And I probably wasn't in the right either, because I started very like aggressively, and that wasn't gonna go well.
Yeah.
I was like, just tell me why you don't want to talk to me. And I was like, looking back, that's just so immature of me.
Well, but it's also like, this is why I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, right.
Or this is not making me want to.
We decided that we just weren't close anymore. And I was like, you know what? Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Like, and I was really upset about it, but I got over it.
Yeah.
There was another instance where I realized that I was getting left unread all the time. They always said that they were busy, but they were hanging out with other people. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna back away, and it's gonna be fine. And I wish them well. Like, I don't wish ill will on them.
Yeah.
I wish them well. Maybe we just aren't compatible as friends. That's okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in the world, and I think that a lot of times when something happens with dating, it's like, oh, there's plenty of fish in the sea, on to the next. Unless, of course, we're talking about like a very long relationship and divorce and things like that. But if like you dated someone for 3 weeks and it didn't work out, some people might be like, okay, whatever, there's other people out there for you. But I think with friendship, we don't necessarily do that. It's not like, it's like, you got to get back out in the game, get out there in that friendship game. Like, we don't talk like that. But that's essentially the idea is, do you want to be around people who don't want to be around you? And sometimes people don't know how to say those things, right? And so it's terrifying. They ghost, or it's scary. It's scary to be like, I don't really want to spend time with you anymore. And I don't know how open people might be to having that conversation with someone. They might just say, well, phase me out, right? Like, do it in a kinder way.
Some people would prefer someone not say something. Some people would prefer the truth, you know? You never know what to really do. You don't know how someone's going to react, but it all depends on how you feel about it and how you want to deal with the situation, because at the end of the day, you are the most important person in your life. So,
That reminds me of an episode I just did probably in May or June with Justine and Ashley from The Cutaways. And so The Cutaways is a podcast about romantic comedies and just talking about, like, we're the star of our life, right? And sometimes we need to allow other people into our life, but we're still the ones that we're looking out for. And so one of the things might just be, okay, sometimes it's just clear that this isn't working out, and maybe more so than with romantic relationships, people feel like they can move on without saying too much, because we do have multiple friends, right? So it's like, you're one of 20, do we have to have a formal conversation, but I also think sometimes it can be easier to phase out. And what I mean by this is not being like, I purposely am going to do what I can to get you out of my life. What it means is, if you have a friend that you're like, feel obligated to be around, but then you start feeling like, well, I'm just excluding them or trying to do all these things not to be around them, maybe you just need a break. right? And so one of the things that you can do, and this happened to me, is so I had a friend where we spent so much time together, and then it just became too much. And so what I ended up doing after talking to some other people was, and my friend Kat, and I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but it's worth saying again, that Kat's like, you don't have to be best friends with everyone, and you don't have to give a friend your entire life. And so there are plenty of people who simply get together to do coffee, and that's it. Or they meet together to do yoga, to use that example from before. Or like they're sports friends, so they text about sports, but maybe nothing else. And so we can have different types of friends. Some friends might know anything and everything, and that's great, but not every friend needs to know anything and everything, and you don't have to give them all your time. So what I ended up doing with someone where I felt like, okay, we just need a little bit of a break. I don't need to pick up every phone call. I can do, the text message. Well, first off, don't ever use on read. Like, you do not need to know receipts on that. I think just works up bad feelings.
Yeah.
But it was basically like, okay, well, this is how I'm going to spend time with her. We're going to do movie and coffee. And it ended up being a relationship that ended up ending. And so I haven't been friends with this person in like 16, 17 years, something like that. But that was one of the things was like, if it was something like we just went to movies together and it worked out, then why not? And so maybe it was just like we needed to set up some new boundaries, or it was a different type of friendship. But just going into friendship and saying that everyone should know everything, every single thing about me, I need to know every single thing about them. We need to spend every minute together. Like, no. And I'm extroverted, but at this point, I feel like, what's the one that's in between? You have introvert, extrovert.
Amnivert, something like that.
I'm an /amnivert, yeah. Which is somewhere in between, because I also need my time to decompress and reflect and those sorts of things. So we don't need to do everything. So sometimes it might be, you know what, if you feel excluded, you might just invite that person to do something. And if it continues, maybe if you're willing to have that conversation, but maybe the friendship is just changing. And if you still want to be friends, then you can seek them out. But if they're like, I only have time to do coffee, well, then do that. Maybe you'll be great friends and it'll continue for a really long time because it works well for you both. So I think that your friend has to be everything to you is a misconception of friendship. And I think
absolutely,
I think it's something that we learn. But also, when friends change, why don't we get back out there? There's plenty of friends in the sea, or whatever the saying is. Fish, but I'm using friends here. Why not?
So I think people expect friends to be a little bit more loyal than a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
They expect, like, when a relationship ends, they expect a friend to be there and say, you know what, girl, screw him. Like, yeah. we're gonna go out. I got you. Like, let's go get drinks. So, forget about him. There's plenty of other people. But if that friendship ends, you just think, like, you don't expect, like, that backbone to not be there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a cult. I was going to say culture shock. It's not a culture shock, but
it's a shock.
It is a shock to your system. Yeah.
Yeah. And because, well, who's there then when you have a friendship breakup? Another friend? Maybe they're still friends with that person. It becomes a lot more complicated, I think. And yeah, I mean, but we all need some level of support when we're going through these transitions in our relationships, whether they're romantic, friendship, or not. And so in that case, if it's even family or something like that, that's, people would need to seek out to get assistance there, because it can be hard. We don't treat them the same, and they're different in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of ways in which something from romantic relationships could really lend well to friendships, and there are some cases that things with friendship could lend well to romantic relationships. So let's shift gears a little bit. I have one more question on the list for today, and that is, how can straight and gay friends talk to each other successfully about their romantic relationships? What are your thoughts on this topic?
So I have quite a bit of experience talking about this. As a gay woman, I have a lot of straight friends. There have been times that I was the token. It's fine. I had friends in the past that I'm not really close friends with anymore because they didn't want to understand and know, like,
the romantic side.
Yeah. They kind of a little bit don't want to say homophobic, but just a little bit.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, they would always say like, hey guys, this is my lesbian friend. I'm like, I'm also so many other things.
Hi, I'm Jordan.
Hi, I'm Jordan. Like, you know.
Oh, Jesus.
But I do, actually, somebody that I talk about relationships a lot is one of my person, Kayla.
Yeah.
Shout out. Love you, girl. She has a boyfriend. I have a girlfriend. Yeah. And we kind of both talk about our different experiences. With her, it was easy to just kind of, you know, meeting the family, doing this, doing that. When you have a gay relationship, we have, as a country, we have progressed a lot, but there's a lot that still needs to be done. And it's hard when you have a lot of gay relationships are either secretive or kept a little bit private, and we just aren't as used to talking about it with our friends, and we kind of feel there's still a stigma there to talk so openly about it. Yeah. I know I had I think it was like a year or two ago, me and all of my girlfriends, we had like a girls' night, like sleepover, and everyone there was straight except for me, and I was like, that's cool. And immediately they just all wanted to talk about boys and their relationships and their sexual relationships. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, this is kind of awkward. Yeah. I don't feel like it's my place to talk about these things. Yeah. I don't want to bring up my experiences because I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, even though I was feeling uncomfortable, but you know,
and it's probably one of those things where the thought wouldn't even be that you would feel uncomfortable because our society is so heterosexual focused.
Yeah. So right. Heteronormative.
Yeah.
I do know I've had friends that are just curious and they're like, so how does all that work when it comes to, you know, the other stuff? And I'm like, you have Google, first of all. You don't have to, I'm not, you know, I'm not the leader of the lesbians. I can't exactly tell you everything that everyone is different, just like every straight person is different. You know, so it's just, that's kind of funny. But I do think it is a little bit different experiences, especially when you get to two men in a relationship, two women in a relationship, two people that, you know, don't identify as either gender or both genders or anything, any type of identity. It's always going to be different. I think ultimately, though, it's different because we're just not used to talking about our experiences. But when you have somebody that is willing to talk about it so openly, like I feel like with my close friends, I can willingly talk about like girls that I'm attracted to or anything like that. And they don't feel weirded out by that. I have had friends in the past that immediately felt weird about, you know, me talking about things like that. And they talked about, they wanted to have like a girl. This was a different group of friends. They wanted to have like a night they wanted to have like a girls' night, but they didn't want me to be there because they felt weird about me being there because I liked girls. And I was like, but it's not, I don't like every woman I see. It's not like, do you like every man you see? Like that doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
it's just, no, I don't.
It's with that. It's with that level of understanding. I think, because you know, people in gay relationships, some of them still have to come out to family. Yeah, we can't just, you know, bring our partners or significant others over to meet family and stuff like that.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of different layers that a number of straight people might not recognize or even consider because we do live in a heterosexual biased society, right? Everything, it's like assumed everyone is heterosexual, right? Yeah. And so it's one of those things that it's like, no, there are not a lot of people we know. People have different, you know. Yeah.
I also had experience with a friend who just didn't understand why. This was like, I think my freshman or sophomore year, I was still, I come out to people every day. Not everyone knows, you know. Yeah. It's always a coming out experience. I was talking to this one friend, she just didn't understand why I had trouble dating people. And I'm like, do you realize that your dating pool is much larger here than mine? Yeah. Especially people who are out. Yeah, people who are out, especially in specifically like our area, our university, it's a very small community.
Yeah.
And it's not like every gay person that gets together is going to
be like, hey, let's get together.
Oh,
you're two are gay, so you must want to date each other.
I've had friends of mine, I think this is just their way of being like accepting, but they're like, oh, my one friend from high school that lives like 30,000 miles away, they're possibly gay. Like, I think you guys would be perfect together. I'm like, I'm sure of it. I'm so sure of it.
It's like, it's one of those things where it might be well-intentioned, but it's still problematic in some ways. It's still problematic
and closed-minded.
Yeah.
Because I think it's all about education. It's all about educating them. Because I've had friends that I've had to sit down and I was like, hey, you can't say those things to me that, you know, if it was reversed, you wouldn't want me saying those things to you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just that mutual understanding.
Yeah, and so it's like, it's one of those things, like, I mean, you dropped the mic on me, it's about communication, but if you are in friendships and, you know, your friend is gay and you're straight, maybe there's a conversation about, and here's the thing, it might not have anything to do with it. Some people don't want to talk about sex with their friends, right? But they might talk about relationships with their friends, right? And aren't we all humans looking for people to love us and for us to love and that sort of thing? And I'm sure there are similar situations and there's probably different situations, but we can listen and we can perhaps provide advice, but a lot of times it might just be listening and going, I hear you. Well, I hate when things like that happen in my relationships, even if I'm dating a man. Right. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because this isn't necessarily a gay and a straight person, but this is, so one of the people that I consider another close friend is a gay man. And he's actually the one person I'm most comfortable talking about relationships, sex, all of that. And we both actively talk about that. And we both like different genders. So it's interesting that somebody that is attracted to a man versus like a straight woman who's attracted to a man who feels uncomfortable talking about those things, which I completely understand. Like, I would never want to force those conversations. It's just that when...
On anyone, no matter what.
Of course. And that's all about, you know, consenting and talking about things. And it's all about feeling out the friendship and, you know, figuring out if it's comfortable or not to talk about. But I guess, like, especially going back to, like, the one time where I was with close friends as well.
Yeah.
But it was when they were all talking about, you know, guys and stuff. I didn't feel like it was my place to even bring my opinion or bring my experiences in because it's just so different.
Yeah.
But once I actually had that conversation with them, they were like, no, we want you to talk about these things. That's who you are. Yeah. We don't want you to feel excluded because of something so minimal in your life that that's not the one thing that defines you. It's just another thing, you know?
And I think that comes almost full circle to all, I mean, we've only covered 3 questions today, and that's fine. Like, let's go in depth, let's get at them and that sort of thing. But I think the idea of feeling excluded could be something where it's like, you might not feel comfortable because you didn't think they felt comfortable. And everyone might be like, we're all comfortable. Let's talk about it, you know? And some people, you know, I've done research on sex for years, and what I can say is that there are some people who don't talk about it with anyone, you know, and there are some people who are like, that's what their friends are for. Probably doesn't matter if they're gay, straight, male, female, you know, they're going to talk to people. And I think that a good start would be just talking to people about relationships. Like, I think that is a general place where people have common experiences, and it's a good way to ease in, maybe toe in the water, see how it goes over. And really, I think it's an excellent point that you brought up. And I mean, anyone in terms of talking about relationships and sex, right? Like, put your toe in the water, so to speak. But in the case of, if you are friends with someone who is gay, it's not like setting them up with the one gay person that you know at work, right? That's not how that's going to work at all, right? It's not saying I can talk, but you can't, right? It seemed like there would have to be some communication and maybe some boundaries, like in any relationship, any friendship.
I had a friend once, when I was first kind of coming out in high school.
Yeah.
And she was just like, I just don't understand how you don't like guys.
Because I don't.
Yeah.
The same way you don't like women.
Yeah, I hit her back with I just don't understand why you just don't like women. And then she just like, we're still good friends to this day, but at the time she just didn't really fully understand. And she was like, you know what, touche. And I was like, thank you. And we're done with this conversation. Yep. It's ending.
Boom. Yeah. And sometimes it is like, maybe for some people, they haven't had these conversations before. And so they're going on some basis of something they saw on TV. And it's like, media is not reflective of reality all the time. No. And so instead of being like, I can set you up with this one gay person I know or the one lesbian that I work with, wouldn't it be like, are you dating now? Or what kind of woman do you like to date? Who do you look for in dating? Yeah. Because then when I see someone or meet someone, I'd be like, oh yeah, and that's
Jordan. Normalizing the situation, because I would say the same thing to you. Like, what kind of guy are you like?
Into? Yeah. And then we could both be on the prowl.
Exactly.
We could be each other's wing people. Yeah. That doesn't seem hard.
No.
But I think you're right that, education is important. And, for some people, like you said, there might have been a little scotch of homophobia. And that's going to make it really difficult in friendships for people to have conversations if someone is not accepting of who you are because of your sexual orientation, which is only a portion of who you are. It doesn't define you. Yeah. It doesn't define me.
Exactly. And I would also say, just another point, that if a friend who's gay is coming out to you, that is not your place to tell other people.
Oh, right
at
on.
all.
Yeah.
Coming from someone who was outed in high school.
Ugh.
It was horrible. It was the worst. I didn't want anyone, not that I was ashamed of myself, but I didn't want anyone to know. It ended up that, like, a friend at work asked me if I was gay.
Yeah.
How did that get all over there when I told a close friend of mine?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. And I would say even further from my experiences of working with trans students that you never out a trans student.
No.
And one of the things is, as a teacher, this just fuels my fire, because my belief, this, you're in my class, everyone deserves to be happy, healthy, and safe. Mm-hmm. And, people are just living their life. And I can't understand how a name change can't go through into my class list. And so then I have information, and every student I've had has contacted me in advance or come to my office, and they shouldn't have to come out every single semester to someone that they might not want to come out to.
Right.
And so, but the thing about it is, what I do is I update my class list for any of my TAs so they don't know what name is on the class list, because it's not my business to tell anyone else, even in an administrative manner.
Right.
And so I think if I'm thinking about it administratively, then thinking about it socially, and these are people you care about, never out anyone.
Because you do not know their situation.
You don't know their safety situation.
Yeah, you don't know their safety situation. Yep. And it's just not your place to say.
Yeah. Mind your business.
Exactly.
So I was thinking of a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode. Just mind your business. Jordan, this has been a delight. Do you have any topics that you think we should cover in the future on asking for a friend? And that question just came out of nowhere. I definitely
think living with friends. Yes. That is definitely a topic that you should speak on.
Oh gosh, yeah, it can be tough.
It's a roller coaster.
I can tell you, as a teacher, that is one of the top things I hear from students is their living situation. So yeah, I have episodes dedicated to roommates, but then we can also do some asking for a friend. So if you have questions about living with friends or any other topic about friendship, send it to bestforeverspod@gmail.com, or send it to me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and there are going to be 4 more episodes of Asking for a Friend, because these are the questions that we have. These are the questions that need to be answered, and it's so fun to be able to talk to someone else about their experience as well as doing it. So thank you, Jordan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. So until next time, friends, take this advice from today and apply it to your life so that we can make all of our friendships better, because without our friends, who'd we be? Listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com, and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.
We are Crime Crazy, the weekly true crime podcast with Aaron Klein
and Diana Seacon,
where we prove
that we know nothing about our legal system,
or sharks' digestive systems,
or how many priests are necessary for an exorcism,
or the guillotine,
or how much milk can fit in a shopping cart,
or how to cook dicks,
or what it means when your nose itches,
or penguins,
or why it's called Scotland Yard,
or proper body disposal,
or sentencing,
or how to make it through an entire episode without saying God.
How big does a rock have to be a boulder?
Or geography.
Or whether stingrays have teeth.
Or crime in Minnesota.
Or how medical parole works.
Or why people text their crimes to each other.
Or the hierarchy of cops.
Or what a paper grabber is.
Anything about an Alford plea.
The security at Buckingham Palace.
If warrants expire.
How to start a fire.
How much drugs cost.
If ducks would make good guard animals.
Whether priests have to tell the police about crimes they are aware of and maybe even involved in.
Pink stun guns.
How much is 11 pounds of cocaine worth?
The mechanics of hanging.
What happened to Carla Homolka after her release?
How to make a car fly.
The Colonial Parkway Killer.
Do swans migrate?
Marital property laws in Florida.
If horses can throw up.
Do karate gators hibernate?
What animals can get drunk?
How do you get stuck in a window?
Where do sharks live?
International flight security.
How to get a typewriter into your prison cell?
What you shouldn't bring to a robbery.
But we're still crazy for a good true crime story. If you don't know anything about these things either, you should come listen to Crime Crazy. Diana, do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, you should subscribe to Crime Crazy. You can find us on iTunes or Google Play or Podbean or your podcast catcher of choice.
You can follow us on Facebook,
Twitter,
Instagram,
WordPress,
Facebook,
Gmail,
or Facebook.
Call your people.
Yes, call your people.
And don't end up on next week's episode.